The struggle of a Nigerian youth. The harsh reality. It was the clock-ticking sound, a reminder that another day had passed in a place where time never felt like enough. The sun was hot, the air thick with dust, and the streets were filled with people going nowhere. In Nigeria, the hustle is real, and for many youths, it's a fight to stay afloat. Imagine growing up with the dreams of becoming someone great, someone who would make their family proud. That was the hope of every Nigerian youth, like Frank. As a child, he had dreams of becoming an engineer, working on grand projects that would change the world. His parents, despite their struggles, made sacrifices. They sold what they could, worked long hours, just to send him to school. Education was his golden ticket, or so he thought. But Nigeria had other plans. As Frank grew older, his education journey became a series of frustrating delays. Strikes, broken promises, universities shut down for months. The anger built up, but he pushed through, hoping that someday it would all make sense. But that day never came. Graduation came, but no job, no opportunity. Frank was stuck in a system that had failed him, a system that had failed so many like him. He couldn't even look at his parents without feeling the weight of their sacrifices, knowing that he had nothing to show for it. The desperate search for survival. When hope seems lost, survival becomes a priority. Frank wasn't alone. He watched as his friends, those he had studied with, went down paths they never imagined. Desperation had a way of pushing people to extremes. Some turned to petty theft. Others sold their souls for a quick buck. But many, like Frank, turned to dangerous and illegal activities in a desperate bid to survive. For some, it was the world of cybercrime, the notorious Yahoo. Young men, unable to find legitimate work, resorted to internet fraud. They became experts at scamming people, both locally and abroad, stealing from unsuspecting victims. It wasn't just about money, it was about survival. But it was a dangerous game, one that left many vulnerable to the law. Cybercriminals have tarnished Nigeria's image, casting a shadow over the achievements of millions of honest Nigerians. The country's reputation is constantly undermined by these fraudulent schemes, and the ripple effect is felt in international relations, trade, and diplomacy. Others, like Frank, found themselves caught up in drug abuse. The lack of opportunities and the pain of constant failure led many youths to seek solace in substances. The rise of drug addiction among Nigerian youths became an epidemic. Families are torn apart. Young people's futures are destroyed as they spiral into addiction. The impact on society is devastating. The streets, once filled with hopeful youths, now saw the rise of area boys, street gangs, and touts who extorted money from passers-by and transporters. They also fight in the streets and have contributed to the lawlessness that have plagued the cities. Some, in their desperation, turned to armed robbery and kidnapping. Kidnapping, once seen as a crime for the rich and powerful, has now become a common tool for survival in impoverished areas. Nigerian youths facing unemployment chose the most brutal path to survival. Armed robbery, drug dealing, and kidnapping became their only way out. Even though they knew the consequences were severe jail time, death, or a life on the run, many, like Frank, tried to find a way out of the country. The dream of a better life lay just beyond the horizon. The Sahara Desert was the first barrier. They called it the desperate path, a journey that only the brave or the foolish would take. Frank had no choice. After selling off everything he had, he joined a group of youths heading towards Libya, hoping to cross into Europe. It was a journey that would cost many their lives. The heat was unbearable. Water was scarce. In the desert, death was a constant companion. Many of Frank's friends died, their bodies left behind in the endless sands. Frank made it to Libya, but his ordeal wasn't over. He was imprisoned in one of the country's hellish detention centers. For weeks, he was locked in a cramped cell, beaten and starved, waiting for a chance to board a boat that could take him across the Mediterranean Sea. But even then, the boat was no guarantee. Overcrowded, barely afloat, it was a coffin waiting to happen. Hundreds of youths had taken that risk, and many had drowned in the Mediterranean, their dreams swallowed by the sea. The horror of that journey was too much to bear for some. Yet, for others, it was the only hope they had. Frank survived, but the scars of that journey would never leave him. Back in Nigeria, things weren't any better. The streets are filled with youths who had fallen into a different kind of trap, but none of this came without a cost. The consequences are far-reaching, affecting not just the individuals involved but the country as a whole. The rise in crime and corruption had a ripple effect, pushing the country into further instability.